Development in Baltimore, especially residential development, has taken off over the past decade. Everything from conversions to ground-up builds have been changing the skyline and bringing new residents into the city. Today we talk with Dominic Wiker, Vice President of WPM Real Estate Management, about some of his well-known projects like 500 Park and Mount Vernon Marketplace, his latest development, which is the Fox Building in Hamden, and what it's like raising 2 teens in the city. And you are not originally from Baltimore, correct?
Correct.
And where are you from?
My father was in the Army, so we certainly bounced around, but I would claim myself as mostly from San Antonio.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know you're from Texas,
San Antonio.
technically.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I was there from about 5th grade through college.
That counts.
Yeah, that's
But
what I
you
kind of
can be
figured.
from
So I
there.
sort of associated that, yeah.
Yeah. Because you have no accent.
No accent.
I guess, although that's the only other place in Texas. That is the only place in Texas I've been. I've driven through the state, but I've never stopped.
You could still be driving.
It's a big one.
state.
We drove through it in less than a day.
That's a lot of driving.
It was weird. Well, we drove cross country.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a huge state. Did you like San Antonio?
I loved it. Yeah, it's great. But my family's all from Massachusetts, Boston, and so I always had sort of an East Coast bias, and there was always like an acceptance that that's where we were going to go to school, and I ended up coming to school here in Baltimore, and then...
You went to Hopkins?
I went to Hopkins, yep.
What was it like going to your safety school?
It was certainly not my safety school. It was certainly not my safety school. Yeah, and that was here, and then I left for graduate school, and then I found myself coming back.
What brought you back?
I think sort of relationships that I had.
The one you're in now or different?
No. Just people, and I mean, I went to graduate school in Pittsburgh, and I found myself after grad school working in Harrisburg for the state senate, and it was close enough back to Baltimore that I didn't have to invest a lot of time up there.
Mm-hmm.
And
what were you studying?
In Pittsburgh, or graduate, urban studies.
Okay.
Like
so you
policy.
always knew.
No.
Oh.
No.
Okay.
I entered Hopkins intending to be a lawyer.
Okay. Fair enough.
Until I started understanding what that meant. So I had, some kind of epiphany along the way. I had a good advisor. And then he was like, well, what else are you interested in? And sort of urban stuff was kind of interesting, which is ironic coming from a place like San Antonio, which is not a terribly urban place. It's just very big and sprawly.
Well, we were there for the International Downtown Association last year, and
Right.
I had no expectations. I didn't know anything about the city, and I was really impressed. Actually, it's like I'm sure it's evolved, as all cities
Absolutely.
do. But the culinary scene was insane. I didn't know CIA that they had a campus there,
No, that's new.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I mean,
we had a lot of Army and Air Force bases, but...
Oh, sorry. No, Culinary Institute of America.
Oh.
Sorry, not like the CIA.
Well, that's what I was like more kind of focused, So there you go.
No.
It's the trouble with acronyms.
Yeah. Right. So Culinary Institute. I think they have 8 locations around the world.
In San Antonio.
And one, one is in San Antonio.
I remember somebody telling me there were like 4 unique cities in America by whatever rating they had, and it was Boston, San Francisco, New Orleans, and San Antonio. And
unique.
Unique.
Sounds like a Thrillist article.
Probably, but it was like written
Did
40
BuzzFeed
years
tell
ago.
you?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. But yeah, so I'm sure it's, just talking to folks who were there, it's a much different place than it was when I left.
Yeah, but fair point that that wouldn't have ignited your interest in cities necessarily at that point.
Having to drive everywhere and
no.
No.
Well, but so I grew up in northern Baltimore County. I had to drive everywhere.
Right.
And it was almost an hour to school, rush hour. I was always in my car, and that really informed my choice to live in the city. So I wonder if maybe that was the way it went for you, or
maybe, or right. I think really it had more to do with all of our my one side of my family was up in Boston. We would summer with them every year. And summer meant like going to Quincy. Didn't mean like Nantucket. But it was just neighborhoods that you could walk around in, or you'd go downtown to Boston, or you'd go. And so it was just sort of an kind of obvious place where we kind of focused on. It could have been Chicago or San Francisco or anywhere else for that matter, but that's where we went. And so
Right.
that's kind of what, in some way, that's what sucked me up here in Baltimore.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you have since stayed since having
Yeah,
your two
since
kids.
96.
So you've been here since 96.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep. Same neighborhood, whole thing.
Not the same house?
Third house
Okay.
in the neighborhood. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
And how's raising kids in the city? There's just always this.
Yeah,
People always ask me because we're doing it. And
I never really
curious.
thought anything of it. I mean, it's really, in some ways it's really easy. It's, there's a lot going on. It's, my daughter's about to get to an age where she could potentially drive, but there's stuff that she could walk to in a way that I didn't have that. So that pressure I don't hear that from her or that I was when I was her age to be when's my car? And she's like, oh, I can walk. I can take the circulator.
Does she do that now?
She walks now. She sort of walks from the neighborhood over to Harbor East. That's like her little world.
That's pretty cool.
I think next year, it wasn't part of her decision making, but I think she's excited with the idea of going up to Mount Vernon regularly for BSA, not Twigs. She could take the circulator. She sort of likes that notion of getting on it. She's comfortable with sort of public transportation. I think she's aware that Baltimore's really lacking in that department. Mm-hmm. We were in London over the break, and we go to New York often, and DC fair bit. And so, she's sort of accustomed to different ways of taking subways, and and she sort of realizes we don't have one. Thank you, Governor Hogan. So anyway, but yeah, no. So I think so that's happening. I think it's been great. I mean, the school community for us has been really good. I mean, it's really knit us into our neighborhood in kind of a different way, and we can see, both my kids' elementary school was 2 blocks from my house in one direction. My son's middle school was 2 blocks in the other direction. It's half of his baseball team is one of those 2 schools. Mm-hmm. So, it's very easy to imagine, just sort of keeping up with folks. But it is interesting. I mean, like with anything else, you kind of age out of certain circles and you move into other circles. But it's been good. I mean, we had questions early on about the schools, and we got those answered pretty quickly, and we found them to be really, high quality educations, and they've done really well. We had momentary about, wouldn't it be nice to have a yard? And then suddenly that window kind of closed, and everybody didn't really care.
Yeah.
Whether it's the park or the blacktop or the alley. I mean,
things you don't have to take care of.
Things you don't have to take care of, right?
That's
for
what
sure.
we can come back to.
So yeah, it's been great, and I think it's been really helpful for my kids to, interact with a lot of people, see a lot of people, have go to the hardware store, go to the library, run this little errand for me. And, there's something there. It's empowering, I think, in some way.
This is actually more for me than for anybody else maybe, but how old were they when you started letting them kind of do these little errands or go out on their own?
Tommy is 11 now. He started walking home in 5th grade by himself. And Alex we probably didn't get to that point with him until Alex was really in probably 6th grade, I bet. It just was the second kid was a little a little easier, go ahead and do it.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, they weren't big walks, but they were walks, and it's sort of leaving nests in some ways, and it's kind of neat.
It's really cool.
Yeah. And the neighborhood, where we live in Federal Hill, just many, many more babies, children, teenagers than there ever was back in 96. I mean, I often think you'd see a stroller and then you'd see them gone. And now it's, people in front of us did a lot of hard work at the schools and, got them to a point where people felt really comfortable. Mm-hmm. And so it's been great.
I was in Hamden last week, midday, and same kind of neighborhood where maybe 10 years ago, you wouldn't have seen tons of families walking around. And I counted, because after the first 3, I started counting. I counted 8 stay-at-home dads, like wearing their babies, pushing strollers, and it was just this like, like social complete change than it ever was when we first moved to the city. Like that it's dads, that it's families. It was just very cool. So
No,
I love the city's going this way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, and you see that in a neighborhood like Hamden or elsewhere, and I mean, this is such an easy, nostalgic kind of thing to have, but you feel like, geez, I wish I could like have lived there for a little while. And I wish I could have lived in Fells and, but we're all, you get one shot at this. And, but so it's great to see more neighborhoods going through that same thing.
Definitely.
And so.
Well, that's a good segue into a question I had for you. I just saw it's from last year, but I just saw it. Your BBJ article talking about pet-friendly apartments. And it's very interesting because you talk about, you sort of at the end of the process for 520 Park and 500 Park Avenue, which I should say you're the developer of.
Yes.
We should probably get to that at some point. You're not just a dad. You guys put in the dog run and dog washing stations because that need sort of made itself known to you. And then the article goes on to highlight like 414 Light Street and a few other luxury apartment buildings where there's like 80% dog ownership. And it's interesting because though I'm seeing more families, things like that would tell me that like maybe there aren't a lot more families coming. So I'm curious to know, is it just perception or what are your thoughts on?
Do you mean like people have pets in lieu of?
Well, I mean, I don't know that families are moving into 414 Light. I think it's probably couples or singles moving in with their pet. It's hard to imagine, a family of like 4 moving into these apartments. So Baltimore, unless I'm wrong.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I don't think Baltimore has an apartment, sort of living lifestyle for people beyond 1 or 2.
I agree.
1 or 2 people, and so it's not, so that right off the bat, that's going to sort of cap kind of the density of some of these neighborhoods. You're not going to have a lot, families living in a high rise like you'd live in, downtown New York or other cities. It's not even, other than just, very few exceptions. It's probably not even it's not even out there. We see an awful lot of pets. I mean, we don't see 80%. And that's a kind of a stunning number. There's a lot of folks, in that 25 to 35, 40 range who are coming to Baltimore for lots of different reasons. And, I think for for a lot of folks, it's, that pet is, it counts for a lot. It's whether it's like, a security blanket or a relationship or something in between. I mean, it's a big deal. And, from our, wearing my developer hat, I mean, we really want to be able to position to cater for people and give them kind of like a degree of comfort. And I think, to me, the dog run that you describe is sort of like, I never want to really forget that experience because, we took what was supposed to be a road and and turned it into something nice. And I'm like, we don't need.
It was supposed to be a road?
It was supposed to be a road.
Between
Nothing.
buildings?
Between that, yeah, exactly. So you could get out to Park Ave quicker.
Oh, no.
Because that 1 minute going out to Center Street was just too long.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, I mean, but and it kind of like changed a little bit the character of the street. It brought those 2 buildings together. It's made a lot of like people interact with each other in a cool way.
Well, and it looks beautiful when you're at ceremony, just seeing. Yeah. It's much better than a road. I mean, seeing like
agreed.
People living in the space is really nice.
Yep, agreed. And I got an opportunity to like see the dog run at 414 dog area over at the One Light Street building. I can't remember the name of the building. And they're great, but they're off the street. And so I like the fact that like, we have a lower scale building, but I like the fact that we brought it down to street level. So as you're walking by, you may not be interacting with the people behind the fence, but there's that level of activity that, you're conscious of and you're aware of, and it's not, 25 stories above you.
Right.
And it also, like I had said, I thought the coolest thing that I'd heard was, people making friends, making relationships across the two buildings. And, it's a natural, kind of meeting place for people,
Totally.
and just like, oh, you got a dog, I got a dog, let me start talking. That's pretty cool. So.
Can you talk about a little bit about the history of 520 Park? Because if that was, before that, we just had public markets. I think that was the first.
Oh, Mount Vernon Marketplace?
Yes.
Yeah, so it was our first, I guess Baltimore's first food hall. I think you could probably argue, certainly Belvedere came first.
Sure.
But I think they kind of approached it a little bit differently, more like, I would think that they really approached it more like a market. Our feeling was more of like a food hall, which was where things were kind of heading. We had this big space. We knew we wanted to activate it. We were very successful with the residential leasing that was happening above. And then we had looked at a couple different options, ranging from a CVS to a grocery store, small grocery store.
As a resident of Mount Vernon, thank you so much for not putting another CVS. I love the one we have. It's nice to have one, but
right.
Oh my God. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And then, so anyway, we took a quick trip down to DC, saw Union Market, and felt like we could do something like that. And, somewhat analogous to the dog run, I think that's really turned into a space where people just kind of come. And, and in that regard, it's really surpassed our expectations as far as just, it feels much more mature than. It's been open for 4 years. It feels like kind of like just part of the scenery now. It feels like it's always been there, and just people feel very comfortable of kind of, so it's been great. It's been really, really good.
What were your biggest challenges with it starting out, or what would have been your biggest challenges?
I think early on it was, getting people to see the vision. And our leasing folks, I give a lot of credit to. I mean, before we probably opened, we were close to 30 or 40% leased, and they were able to kind of sell the notion to people who were leaving farmers markets or sort of small establishments by themselves or coming from a kitchen somewhere, from a restaurant. So I think that was an early challenge. I think the biggest challenge has always been. We were making it up as it went along with the management. And so it's much more of a intensive management operation than one would think. The fact we're kind of responsible for, kind of the health and well-being of all the common space for 16 different merchants, all of them who've got very strong opinions, all of them who've got really strong ideas about their vision, and all are really wanting to succeed, and we're trying to create that framework where they can. So it's up to us to keep the lights on, maintain the maintain the cleanliness, bus tables, advertise, market, so the list goes on, and I think we were pretty naive in terms of we approached it as we would almost an apartment, which is our core business, and here's your lease. You're in. No. I'm never going to hear from you until it's time for you to either move out or release. And that's not this. This is a lot of nurturing. Uh-huh. Yes.
So you mentioned going to DC. Have you looked at any other cities or really impressive examples in other cities and drawn inspiration from them for other projects?
I got plenty of inspiration. Anywhere where I feel like there's walkability. Is a real high priority for all of us, no matter where the project's really located. Mm-hmm. We're not interested in, kind of building outside of cities. And the neighborhoods change, so that's always a little interesting. I would say that we're opportunistic, and we'll take what the given building has or the project needs, and whether it's what the neighborhood's asking for or what the kind of the physical layout of the building is, and then we'll figure out, so at Fox.
I was just going to say Fox sounds like we made,
we had this space, and then we heard from the neighborhood, and we were able to create, I think, what's becoming a very dynamic artistic space in Hamden, which is concerned about losing spaces like that, given the amount of activity and gentrification that's happening. And so it's great. But as another challenge, and I think Fox is a good example there. Really, we found a great woman to help us reach out to those people, reach out to
like a neighborhood ambassador,
to the artistic community. Right. I mean, it's not something that I know enough about or could do enough about or have enough credibility with. And so, I created the venue that she asked for, and now she's out there basically being able to find people, sell people, say, come here, have another show. And so, we've been open there for about 6 months, and it's really stepped up.
Well, and you should, I did a hard hat tour, but I haven't been back. But just to describe it for people who don't know, because it's artist space, but it's also lofted apartments.
Correct. Right? Yep. So upstairs, all apartments, and then we have this about a 10,000 square foot communal art studio. We currently have, I think, 18 different artists in those studios, and they're all.
What's your capacity?
20.
Oh, okay. Oh, so
it's pretty close.
Wow.
90%. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, it's good. I mean, and some people, there are a lot of folks who. Are looking to have space that they can dedicate it for, coming out of their living rooms, getting out of their basement, wanting to take the next step professionally. And then we've got, we have kind of like a good-sized gallery space where they can display. With this new manager of ours, Pam, has done a super job as far as reaching out to the community, getting people to display, getting people to have events. It's been super. And, I think for us, just like at Mount Vernon Marketplace, what it's done is it sort of demystified the building where, it's fine to have an apartment building, but that kind of accessible street level is really exciting, really interesting. They don't want to see the whole thing. They don't care about the apartment, but they were really happy to walk through the front door of the gallery space at Fox and be like, wow, I've always wondered, and in that case, it's 22-foot high ceilings and, you get a flavor for the whole thing. So.
Is that a typical approach for developers in Baltimore? I mean, do they kind of build first and ask questions later, or are they questioning along the way like you guys are?
I don't think a lot of people, and I wouldn't say this is just true for Baltimore. I think a lot of folks probably have a playbook and they like their playbook, and obviously this is a bottom line kind of oriented business, so I think they're probably stuck on that. I think the mistake that a lot of folks do, not just here, is, I think by engaging folks early, it really it saves more time than it costs.
Getting buy-in.
Yeah, getting buy-in, getting approval, especially when you need approvals. I mean, there are some places where you don't need any buy-in. You can just do whatever the heck you wanted. We've been in situations where we needed to have some buy-in, so it was to everyone's benefit and the project's benefit to engage. And I think we undertook it in a way. It wasn't a hard sell. I don't want to overstate it. People wanted what we were thinking about, and in all of our cases, they kind of added value. And so these are complicated, and they're it takes more than one brain to be thinking about it. And so when people have these ideas, whether small or big, it's helpful, and you can be like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's keep moving. So, but like I said, I think there's only been value as far as us. But I also see people that get bogged down and things get confrontational and expensive and time and uncertain, and those sour you for the next time, obviously.
Sure.
So.
But you've also done work across town in Fells Point.
Yep.
You're working, or you've completed work.
I completed work on behalf of...
You know how you get stuck in your neighborhood?
Yeah, no.
I'm never over there. But Broadway Market is complete.
Complete.
Okay.
Yep, Broadway Market is complete. It's really great. I'm super thrilled to have had the opportunity to work with Baltimore Public Markets. They wanted...
Was that your first public market?
That was the first public market
Okay.
I worked on, yep. So they were very interested in kind of pursuing a model where they could both retain ownership, but then, really improve their merchandising and their physical environment. And I thought the team, in a very, with a very tight budget, in some really real political constraints, really pulled off a really great little project. Mm-hmm. So now we're looking at Hollins, and we'll see how that goes.
So Hollins is your next.
We're trying. I mean, I think it'll be a different character. So we're kind of working through what the program wants to be. Mm-hmm. But it's exciting.
What else is on your horizon for Baltimore City projects?
We've got a few sites that we're looking at. It always takes longer than you want. Is there like a dream project that is coming up, or is there something is there a dream project you'd want to work on? We're really interested in creating a continuing care facility in downtown. So an assisted living,
sure.
And I think kind of bridging that gap for folks who may be aging out of their apartments or houses and might be the moms and dads of the kids at elementary school now, which we think that there's sort of a burgeoning market for that. We've looked at some things, we've thought about it. We're pretty focused on that kind of idea. No one's really done it. And you had asked about other cities, and no one's really done it. So it's been kind of interesting to see how you fit that in. So that's kind of what's out there, and trying to educate ourselves about the needs of seniors and the needs of families who might be looking for that type of thing.
I embarrassingly have never considered that, and my father used to operate at assisted living facilities throughout Baltimore and between Baltimore and Annapolis.
Yeah, so I mean,
they were never in downtown.
Right, you're like, why should you have to leave? I mean, there's certainly some great models in the city, but they're not necessarily in like the more downtown oriented neighborhoods, mm-hmm. and we think that it's probably time for one of those to come to pass.
That's a very cool project.
Yeah.
Well, if we're going to talk about other cities again, are there any other cities who are just like killing it? Like other cities that just are getting it, or neighborhoods in other cities that you've been looking to bring ideas back here?
I mean, I never approach another city thinking I'm going there with the idea of bringing ideas back.
You don't? Wait, really? When you travel, I feel like every time I leave.
No, I was in Chicago this past weekend. I mean, that's obviously a world-class city. I mean, there's lots and lots to draw inspiration from. I mean, I think it hasn't been my experience that, every city has different dynamic, has a different story, has a different reasons for doing certain things. Right. And so I feel like sometimes we can get ourselves caught in a little bit of a trap of, why do they have it and we don't? And, we're Baltimore, we can't have it, or we don't. We clearly have some self-confidence issues in that regard. I think the city that I'm, apart from Baltimore, that I'm pretty accustomed to is Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. I mean, I spent a fair bit of time there, and time there when I felt the two cities were very comparable. And I think, 20 years later, Pittsburgh's accelerating at a faster rate in a lot of positive ways than Baltimore has. And, and I think similar size, similar demographics. So that's a city that I've actually tried to learn more about than just as a visitor, and trying to understand, trends and what's driving it. And, I think a lot of their success was a very proactive and engaged city hall, foundation community, and higher education. And they all kind of worked together on a plan. Mm-hmm. And stuck with that. No, I mean, I think, it's easy. Certainly we have the pieces, but it's just getting those things together. Mm-hmm. But that's a city that I've been kind of fascinated with.
Yeah. I just, with my downtown partnership life mm-hmm. for the past 8 years, I don't think I've left this city without, I could go to Newark, Delaware and be like, well, that's a really nice, public toilet that they, everywhere
Absolutely.
I look, it's, yeah.
Well, that's for sure.
I don't know if it was a lack of confidence, but I do see your point to that of why can't we have it? It was more just, I feel so inspired about city living when I'm in other cities, I guess.
I think that's true. Mm-hmm. And you can sort of see how people do it differently. Mm-hmm. I think, nice streetscape's not going to address a lot of bigger issues that we have. And,
Sure.
so it's trying to like provide that kind of quality experience in the physical environment. And then we need to spend probably more time on the systemic issues.
You haven't solved those yet? No?
Exactly. But one more food hall is not going to matter.
Right.
Can't
hurt.
But it pushes it over the top.
So going back to 520, instead of we talked about like you had CVS or a major retailer, right? And instead of going that route, which would have been really easy, like you were saying, it's kind of a turnkey, like come in, do, or not, I guess not turnkey, but come in, and then they're just there. You don't have to think about it. You did go for the more complicated scenario, whether you truly understood it at that point or not.
Right.
So what is the importance of that? And what is the importance, like what does that do for the neighborhood? And what would you say to other people that are thinking about going for a national brand when they could be actually looking into the community they're already in?
Well, let me say first, it was never a binary choice with CVS of the world. I mean, we were in negotiations, and it sort of stopped, and I think in that case, there was a lot, like you said, a lot to be interested in. I think what was different is that where we went next was, okay, this doesn't seem like it's bearing fruit financially. It's not getting anyone excited. And then, we kind of went in a pretty different direction. I think what we realized was a couple things. Mount Vernon Marketplace at least the way it started, probably wouldn't have worked as an independent standalone project. And so we were fortunate in terms of like our success in the residential side was able to kind of like, give us more optionality. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, the budget says we need to get this much in rent. If we don't get that, our investors from New York or wherever are going to be on us. What's happening? We had a lot of freedom in that regard. And so once we went down that path, other benefits started kind of becoming more apparent. We were really surprised, like as I mentioned earlier, about what a great common space that became, and that people from other neighborhoods, we were like not sure where they were coming from, despite lack of parking, whatever. They were just hanging out, and suddenly that corner was busier, and suddenly it felt more active and interesting, and it certainly helped us make the decision to, spend the next $30 million at the next building. And while that was being leased, we were certainly presenting Marketplace in a way that we hadn't previously. It was like, hey, well, this is what you could live next to. And, it was hard to track the causality of people's decision making, but that was certainly there. I think the other thing that came out of this experience for us was, if you are able to like work with people at the retail level and help them achieve their kind of vision, they're going to make money, you're going to make some money, and are a little bit flexible. There's some upside, and I think what's interesting is we've always valued on the residential side occupancy and stability more than like the last dollar. And there are other people that see things differently, and that's completely understandable. But we really took that approach at the Marketplace as well. And, what ended up happening is that, people stayed with us as we were figuring stuff out. They built their business. They built their business more. Things got better for them, got better for us. And, suddenly the guy who was the sous chef at such and such restaurant is now got 2 or 3 stalls, and he's able to like be very, not only support himself and, make a little bit of money, but he's also able to kind of like do things that he never would have been able to do before. And, I think that incubation has been really interesting to us. And, as I think about future projects, if I ever need retail, I think I'm going right back to the people we've got and people we've got a relationship with. And, and I can't say that of the 16 people we started out with. Did they all survive? No, but I think we're over like 10 or 11, which is pretty remarkable. Like, to be like in this
before I came here,
right, in this kind of day and age, to like keep that going, and it speaks really highly, I think, of those guys too.
Well, so it's cool. You kind of had this symbiotic learning curve, and
I think so.
Yeah,
I think that's right.
That sounds unusual, and the way it should be, though. It just seems like you're very open to working with everyone you're working. You're working with everyone that's working with you.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are cases where it's folks need to make that last dollar in a way that we haven't been in that position, and I think we're going to get the benefit of having had that flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love for us to come full circle and for us to have a project and us to take one of the guys from Mount Vernon and plug him in and set him up, and for him to be like, wow, I'm in a real brick and mortar place. I used to be a chef. I had my own stall. The stall turned into 2 stalls, and now I'm in, a brick and mortar place set somewhere else.
Pat Hudson's kind of an example.
I think that's a great example.
Yeah.
He's not with us, but for sure. And we're super excited about that.
Yeah.
People are kind of growing, and, Brown Rice has a number of outlets.
Sure.
And Taps. And,
Yeah,
I think it's
right.
all, it speaks well of those guys' business sense and the product they're doing and the merchandising that they're looking for.
Totally.
Yeah. So.
Well, we'll let that segue into my 5 questions that I ask at the end of each podcast. So it's just places in the city. Mm-hmm. Has to be within Baltimore City. That's all. So your favorite place to eat?
To eat?
Any meal, just favorite place to eat.
Probably Chingali.
Good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Italian. Good stuff.
And no one does wine better than Tony Foreman.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, this might be the same answer, but favorite place to go on a date?
On a date? Geez. It's been after 16 years of marriage. Dates are... golf course doesn't count. No, I would think we really enjoy Fort McHenry in our neighborhood. It's just a great view, great vibe. There's always activity down there. It's really peaceful and it's nice. So yeah, Fort McHenry.
You go on dates on Fort McHenry? That's really
We
cute.
just walk together or, bike down there together.
That's adorable.
That's as dated as I get.
Okay. Well then, you're once again perhaps answering the next question with the previous one, but favorite place to take your kids?
Oh, my kids? Probably 2 different. For my son, it's definitely my favorite place is going to him to Coke Field on Fort Ave for his Little League games.
Okay.
And my daughter, she likes to box at Knockout Fitness on Light Street. And
you
so
are
I think
far more active family than we are.
It's not, but it's fun to see these kids do things that they're interested in, and it's fun that it's connected to the neighborhood.
Do you box too?
No, I don't.
No.
I had until I realized I couldn't take a punch.
Can she?
She's getting there.
Okay.
They're
wonder you let her walk
they're about to
around by
spar.
herself.
Exactly. So it's funny.
Oh, she's about to spar?
Uh-huh.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh. I did the elliptical for 15 minutes today, and I'm so proud of myself. But I cannot imagine boxing. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Favorite place, what is the best drink in the city, in your opinion? Or are you a beer guy?
No, I do like this new Guinness. It's pretty good. Best though.
The way you just held that was when they're Nuprin, little, yellow, different.
Oh, looking at the key, waiting to keep turning the label. No, where did I have a really good drink recently? Well, we also, we go to Little Italy a fair bit, and Negronis down there are all pretty good.
It's my favorite cocktail.
That's a pretty good one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Negronis, and I've also gotten into mezcal gimlets.
Oh no, that sounds delicious.
Just refreshing and
it's too smoky or not too smoky?
Do
you like the smoky?
I like it. You could do tequila. You can do any liquor in a gimlet, but just the lime, it's really fresh.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I like Palomas.
Oh God, I love a Paloma.
Those are pretty good.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Okay.
Good stuff.
And then again, man, this is kind of already answered this. Favorite place to be outside?
Favorite place to be outside for me, it's probably Mount Pleasant Golf Course. that would just be for me. No family wants to go to that.
So are you the only golfer in your family?
No, my son plays. My daughter will go, doesn't want to go. And then when she goes, she's like, why don't I do this more? And so I'm hopeful that there's...
She sounds a little indecisive.
No. She's just got a lot going on. So I think it's a beautiful part of the city.
Yeah.
I like it up there.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much.
Of course.
For chatting with me. I think this is actually your second.
Is that right?
I think you were on when it was the Downtown Download. I think you might be my first repeat.
I did go to Towson.
Yes.
Which I don't like to go to very often.
No.
Ever.
Neither. That's why we built the studio right here in downtown Baltimore.
Perfect.
But I was thinking about that on my way over when I was taking
Wow. Well, I'm honored.
I was on my scooter, just bopping over.
I took the scooter over too.
You did?
Yeah.
Wait, what's your brand? Which scooter?
I have 3 apps on my phone. Today was Bird. Well, I was thinking about parking here, and you were very nice about directions. And then I was like, well, I have enough time. I could dump my car and then scooter down. And so,
who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
When we all moved here.
That's true. 1996, there were no scootering or Paloma drinking.
Well, I would say that your projects have been part of us being in the scooter
revolution.
So thank you.
Scooter revolution. That's high praise.
Thanks, Dominic. Thank you again, Dominic. It was so nice to have you in the studio, and especially thank you for the marketplace, because without it, I think my kids would go without food a couple nights a week. For past Hey Baltimore episodes and all the cool stuff happening downtown, go to our site, godowntownbaltimore.com. Hey Baltimore is produced by Mike Evitz and made possible by Downtown Partnership. Our music is by Super City, and I'm your host, Megan Eisenach. If you want to reach out, email us at heybaltimore@dpob.org. Thanks for listening.